Ladies and gentlemen, chess is hard, and we oftentimes want to feel that we are actually getting better at this game, and one of the most important milestones that I would say is 1000 ELO. In this video, I am going to take you through what I consider to be the 5 most important comprehensive steps to achieving that milestone. Now, if you're watching this as a 1500, yeah, don't follow, you know what I mean? You're not going to lose 500 points from watching this video. Hopefully this helps you as well, and I will make a 5 steps to rating goals beyond this one. So the way this video is going to work is first I'm going to introduce these concepts in long form on the screen like this. Then I'm going to put a shortened form. We will analyze games of my subscribers and make little check-ins with all of these points. And then there are going to be 2 master games at the end. The 2 of my subs played, rated 8,900 that were nearly perfect. So first things first, openings. Do you understand them? Do you have an opening course? Or if you don't, do you at least take the center with 1 or 2 pawns? Do you develop toward the middle? Do you not make multiple moves in the opening? And can you punish garbage queen attacks, right? Do you capture stuff when it's there? Are you blind to that stuff, right? Second point, trading. Don't auto-capture pieces. All trades have value. Bishop for knight, what it does to the color complex, right? Removing a defender, capture sequences, and counting on a certain square. That we're going to get into that today as well. Board vision. Think of the pieces as if they have eyes. What they can see, what they can't see, okay? How the board changes every time one piece moves for both you and your opponent. A pawn moves. What is open now? Another piece moves. What is open now? Those are the first 3. And the last 2, really the last 1, I should say, number 5 is, in my opinion, the most important. Time management is a little bit different, depends on what mode you play, but you're going to try to stay up some sort of percent on the clock. This can help, especially late game, when you are pressuring an opponent that's beating you, right? You don't want to fall behind too far on the clock, but you also don't want to play too fast. If you're booting up a 10-minute game, why do you have 9 minutes on move 15? Calm down. And we're going to get into all that today. And the last thing, the checklist. I talk about this in a lot of videos. Before you make any move, the first thing you need to look at is checks, captures, attacks for you before you start thinking about anything else. And before you make your move, you need to think about that for your opponent. Do they have any checks? Do they have any captures? Do they have any attacks? And this is kind of long form, but now we are going to get into the short form version. So we're going to go up the rating ladder. We're beginning with about 500s. This is a game between a 528, 479. Usernames are all shortened. White begins with B3 and G3. And yeah, this one is sort of self-explanatory, right? The checklist, the opening, we are not taking the center. Black actually is taking the center, but immediately violates that, right? Knight G4, moving a piece 2 times for absolutely no reason, making kind of surface level knight entry style moves. So we really don't want to play like this. But again, we're here for a reason. We're here to learn. White now plays E3, right? And the reason why you really need to follow basic principles in chess is because you want to minimize chaos. That's one thing I'm going to say throughout this video. You have to minimize chaos. Notice that white takes the queen, takes the knight with the queen. Black plays D6, creating a threat. This one move concept is what people love to do. They love to do stuff like this, but then they don't ask themselves, where's the queen going to go? The queen's going to go in and take the G7 pawn, right? And then the H7 pawn. So it's move 7, and white is up 5 points of material. That shouldn't happen. Right now, black should get the rest of the pieces developed, but black makes another pawn move, right? White makes a knight move. That's actually not a bad move at all. White makes black makes another pawn move, not developing the knight or the bishop, but creating a threat on the knight. A lot of low-rated players have center blindness. They tend to not take things in the middle. They just drive their knight out to the side, and suddenly you think the piece is trapped. It's not. Right? It can actually go back to A3 and it's protected, but here white proceeds to lose it, right? This is a counting exercise. This is a bad exchange. People who are watching this at a high level are going to look at this and go, oh, this is such a ridiculous game. Why would you include this? This is typical 500-600 stuff, right? So, okay, suddenly black has won some material back and plays the move Queen F6. That's a great move. The knight is hanging. This is hanging as well. However, if you use the checklist here with white, you're going to realize that check first. This check protects the knight, right? It protects the knight, and after you play it, you can then protect your rook by either moving it or blocking an attack, right? Just because something's under attack doesn't mean you have to necessarily move it. You can block it with a pawn. So this is why you just have to use the checklist. Just use it. It doesn't always come in handy, but in this case, the move Queen E4 check, it's the most forcing move you have. It protects your knight. Now you have no problems, but instead of that, we have rook B1 and queen takes knight. So you see, right now, we see the rook is hanging, so we're going to move the rook. Black plays the move bishop f5. That's actually a fantastic move, attacking the queen. Queen h6, knight d7, and now black plays a couple of absolutely wonderful moves to develop some pieces, takes another pawn, and okay, we have another situation here, right? White sees that maybe white doesn't see that the rook is hanging. Normally, you just react to this by playing rook b2, but then if you look for checks, in comes queen d1, which looks terrifying, and this, and you simply lose everything. So this is a moment you can use the checklist again. Your rook is hanging, but what's worth more than a rook? The king, but right now we can't check the king. The queen is worth more, and you can actually prevent queen to d1 by playing bishop to e2. And this is how you use the checklist. Now, the less time you have in a game, right, you're not going to be that efficient. You're not going to find bishop e2. Also, you're 500, you're not going to find bishop e2. But this stuff is all there. That is really all I'm compelling you to do in this video. Queen f4 is not a good exchange, right? Trading pieces, not all trades are the same. In this case, I would just take this and then take this. So that's not a good trade, right? Counting. So takes, and then there's another capture. This game was quite chaotic. Right here, there was two pieces blundered in one move, and at this level, it's all about these one movers. And there you go, right? And now, again, look at what white does. White gets tunnel vision. White just played the queen there, so white, no, right? The bishop is just free. It's just a free bishop. So this is the kind of stuff that's gonna, and now I think white finally sees it, and does a nice job here of getting the rook to the back rank. Black, of course, doesn't need to move the king. Black can play knight f8. But moves the king. And white does a nice job here. Just takes as much of stuff as possible. Great defense, by the way. Look at this. Seeing how the pieces coordinate. Good defense. And ends up, black trades off their only remaining piece, which is silly. And black resigns. But don't resign. You have no excuse to resign here. Play this game out. I mean, I'm not sure white will checkmate you, right? So don't resign. So this game, right, we could have been better in the opening. The opening needs to be improved. White needs to play much more in the middle of the board. Black actually did play in the middle of the board, but black violated a very important principle, not to just wander off with pieces, and immediately got punished. So instead of that, what black should have done here is played bishop c5, and then played pawn to d5, 2 pawns in the center if you can, knight, bishop, castle, then play the game of chess. Okay, and obviously all the other stuff fits in as well. Second game I have for you. This is a game by a 579 and a 637. This one, the opening by white, is actually superb. White is playing a Vienna. Now, this is not exactly a Vienna gambit. You really only play the gambit when there is a knight on f6. So actually, white doesn't fully understand their opening, but good enough to kind of scare the opponent, right? And play this move, knight f3. Black is not playing in the middle. G5 is not a bad move according to Stockfish. In fact, if you plug this position into the computer, I wouldn't be shocked if this is the top engine move. It's not, but only if white attacks with h4. So basically, if white plays how white played in the game, then it's actually completely fine because black can play g4, but white has to play h4 to refute the idea. White doesn't do that. Now, knight f6, d3. You'll notice how white did everything that I wanted them to do last game. Black has not. Right? Also, in this case, white actually misses a free pawn. That is a pawn you are allowed to take. You are allowed to break the principles because in the last game, the knight went out to g4 on move 2, attacking and taking nothing. Right? The difference here is that this is taking something free and then taking this too. And that's exactly what white does. So white moves the knight back. And now look at this position by white. 2 pawns in the middle, 2 bishops, 2 knights, up a pawn. Beautiful. I mean, this is everything that we want to do. Now let's see what happens. Queen f6. What does that do? Hits our bishop. This is a free pawn, but we have to be a little bit careful here. I like knight d5, attacking the queen and defending, but we're going to slowly scroll through the game. Bishop b7, looking at the checklist so far. Great play by white. Maybe e5, maybe knight d5, right? Attacking this. There's a moment right here where if white uses the checklist, white would have won material. For example, I think h3, right? The checklist just attacks the knight, and the knight actually can't move anywhere. So checks, captures, attacks at all times. All right, we're scanning checks, captures, attacks. I don't dislike that move. We lost the pawn, but, knight goes into e7, bishop to d5. Again, this is one of these moments where, like, if you're 600 and you're playing like this, like, bishop d5 is not the best move, but white has made no blunders yet. It's move 20 almost. So I love this. And you'll notice black's position is very scattered. How does white plan on winning this game? You have to launch an attack. So at some point, you got to go over here and beat up this king. All right, I like h3. I like removing this, right? So now this bishop has no protection. I would get my queen in here maybe. all right? Knight h2 is an amazing move as well. Look at this backward knight move, hitting the bishop, getting the king out of danger. Knight g4, beautiful play. And suddenly things go completely wrong here. The 579 kicks in, white plays knight f6 check, and that's just a clean backwards bishop move blunder. Black thinks that they have to move the king when they're in check, because that's what, for some reason, low-rated players do. Knight back to g4, and actually here, this is mate. Why you always look for checks. Queen hitting the king, protected by the knight, that's mate in one move. It's just mate. What does white do instead? Queen b4, the complete opposite direction. White attacks the bishop and the rook. That can easily be stopped with either bishop back to c5 or bishop back to g7. But let's see what black does. Bishop c5. Okay, now white sees the queen hanging, but plays check, thinking they're winning the queen of their opponent. They are not, because if you do the math, this is trading, right? This is the trading element of the 5 steps. If you do the math here, queen takes rook, knight takes queen, bishop takes queen. You have lost that trade, right? So you can't do that. Your queen's just straight up hanging. So rook f6, king back to g7. Thankfully, white avoids it, and now black's queen is under attack, and now black loses the queen, and white still has to be a little bit careful, and I don't exactly know if white converted this effortlessly. Seems like they're getting there. Oh my gosh, they gave away their knight. But, okay, I mean, yeah, let's not march our king all the way forward against the queen, but not a bad game, right? Not a bad game. White actually controlled it very well, then went totally haywire. Opening was fantastic. Trading was fine, but we have to understand counting. So counting, when your queen is hanging, you have to be very careful going to counterattack a queen, because you have to count exactly what's going to happen. The checklist was followed for the most part, except for the critical moment where white didn't see mate in one. So every move, you have to scan it, right? Have to scan it. Okay. Let's jump down to game number 6. This is game number 6, actually. This is the game I wanted to show you. This is how you deal... Now, this is a big discussion of openings here. Queen f6. How do you deal with stupid stuff like this and very aggressive play? All right, we castle. White here does something absolutely brilliant. White does not just develop naturally, but instead tries to put 2 pawns in the center of the board. This is excellent. This is fantastic, because 2 pawns in the middle are supported by knights, bishops, queen, and white just gets an unbelievably strong position. e5, immediately challenging that stupidly positioned queen. The queen moves over to e6. You can even, and look at this. Look at this move, knight g5. Knight g5, attacking the queen. You say, Levy, you told me not to play that move a couple of games ago. It's a totally different story. This attacks a queen, defended by the bishop, and opening up another attack. Board vision. Board vision, right? Board vision, when the knight moved, the bishop hits the knight. That's board vision. So now we have elements of 1, 2, and 3. Not necessarily trades, but in terms of taking 2 pawns in the center, beautiful pawn lever, right? c3, d4, and refuting this idiotic play by black. Bishop g4. I mean, no disrespect. I'm just saying, like, the person is probably smart, but I'm just saying you can't play like this, right? This is how you punish it. Now, unfortunately here, white gets too excited, all right? And now white messes up their board vision and plays knight takes f7. What they should have done is they should have just played bishop h5, as they are protected and they're going to bulldoze f7. What they thought they were doing is winning a queen. They forgot that when the queen moves off of that square, the pawn can replace it. And here white just goes absolutely nuts. So white tries to counterattack the queen again, which just very calmly loses another pawn. Now white attacks again and very calmly loses a bishop. So white has gone from beautiful play, +5, to -4 in the span of like 3 moves. You're playing hope chess, right? You are hoping that your opponent takes with the queen, and now you pin them to their king. If black plays bishop takes pawn here, the game is over. Because black simply, well, maybe not, but black will play, for example, even castles. The king is weak, but where's your attack? Like, okay, you can attack the bishop, but I'm actually the one attacking you. Hello, this is why you always have to look for checks. Always look for checks for the opponent, right? You've given this to black. Now black is completely winning. Always look for checks for the opponent as well. You're not the only one playing on the board. And, well, what happens? Black loses a queen. And now white is completely winning. So, white played wrong in this game, but still got rewarded for it. And now this is the most dangerous kind of game to play. It's when you get rewarded for bad moves. right? Because you're like, I don't have to change anything. What is Levy telling me? I mean, I obviously know more about chess than he does. And now I really like what white does here. Brings in the bishop, brings in the queen, and every move is check. Like, every move here, to the best of their ability, is check. Notice what white does here is yet another hope chess move. So white plays bishop f6, and the idea is if king takes bishop, queen check, and black falls for it. So white plays a lot of very trappy chess, which is one playing style, but long-term, this is just not going to work. Long-term, white has the capability to get this kind of a position in the first 10 moves, beautiful understanding of the opening, and how to refute stupid play, right? Like silly queen knight moves, whatever, but then gets way too excited and just, I mean, what is this? Like, just totally flaming out, but rewarded for it, right? Black can avoid moves like this by using the checklist. Does white have any checks? Yes. But does white have any ways to attack my queen? Yes. Yes. Does white have any attacks? Rookie 1. Just think about that stuff, okay? I compel you. What ends up happening? The king gets swarmed and gets mated promptly in the center of the board. So, you know, again, when you have a massive lead of material and a weak king, just attack the king. Black never got to move a bishop and a rook in this game because of white's very good opening play and control of the position. We continue to move up the rating ladder, okay? This game, I think my subscriber is with the black pieces, so we're going to look at this from black's perspective. In this game, the opening is actually much better. So both sides are playing directly in the center. White blocks, however, their bishop, which is bad. White also put a knight in front of their c-pawn in a queen's pawn opening, which only makes sense if you're going to play a London. The Jobava London is like the only exception to this, putting the knight in front of the c-pawn. D-pawns love c-pawns. They're friends. And then the e-pawn usually defends the middle. That is something you learn as you get better, okay? We have some trades. I mean, both sides playing quite solidly, although if you look for checks in this position, queen b5 actually wins a pawn. So be a little bit careful. That doesn't happen. All right, so this is great. I mean, look at this. This is, now we're going up the rating ladder toward 1,000, right? Here, white plays a great move. I love what white's move here is. After castling, now opening the center with a pawn trade, right? That's a fair trade. Takes, and now takes. Trading. You see, black took this, which I like, because otherwise e5 comes in. That you have to take. But do you really have to take the knight? I don't know. I just want you to keep that in mind. You don't always have to take everything. Because now you castle, and you've removed the defender of your king. And here comes knight g5. Uh-oh. g6. So now, right, queen h4, always an idea. Queen h4 threatens mate and forces black to weaken their king again. You're forcing black to move the pawns in front of their king. This is not good. But here white does something disastrous. White plays the move d5. Completely wrong side of the board. You need to be focusing here. And if you want to attack somebody, you don't open the center. That means more of their pieces can get into the game. And watch. Takes. Both players completely missed the checklist here. Bishop takes h2 check is one of the most famous tactics in chess. Discovery on the queen. Hanging queen, discovered attack, you win it. Both sides miss it. Instead of that, black attacks the queen instead of just winning it in one move, which is just unbelievably common, all right? And queen takes b7, knight f5, and yeah, I mean, the queen goes back to f3, so now white is just a pawn up. Knight h4. You have to not play these one-move moves. Knight h4 invites the queen directly to the h-file from where it attacks your knight and then the h7 pawn. It's mate! It's simply mate. The reason you played the knight and the queen here like 5 moves ago was to mate black. Instant replay. This threatened mate. You finally got there, and you take the knight instead. You see what I mean? Do you see what I mean? Your opportunities to win these games are there. Always look for checks first, and you have to not play these one-move attacking moves. All right? What did I just do? Just go back? I accidentally went back to the other game. The thing about doing stuff like this, guys, is that you attack pieces and you force them to better positions. You cannot do that. All right? So we've got to be better than this, okay? Queen h3 and just queen g2. So now black is lost. I mean, black is up and black is down a knight. All right, so what do you do when you're down material? I mean, don't trade that much. Try to do your best not to exchange that many pieces. Yeah, it's just pretty good fighting back. Nice, look at this. Great move by white. Threats, right? Not worth as much as the knight here. Now you have to move the knight. And just like last game, too excited. Too excited. I mean, what are you sacrificing? Sometimes just go back. Just keep your knight. Why sacrifice? Do you have an immediate win? Watch what happens in this game. Rook f7. Okay. Bishop f8. Queen g6. And rook g7. What? Hold on. When you played the move bishop to f8, if you had looked around and went, are there any checks? You would have never in a million years played the move bishop f8. You would have been going, oh my gosh, there's a check. I should play something like king to h7. Why should you not play queen f5? Because if you look at the checklist and go, are there any checks? No. Are there any? Oh, there is a capture. Oh my goodness. And that is how you avoid mistakes. And that's a check, by the way, which you wouldn't have seen until you went to capture, right? So bishop f8, you blunder this. Now you think this, but what? That's just, no, that's not a fair trade. And here white just does something catastrophic. Plays rook d7. I mean, just too excited. But do you know why white made this blunder? Because at this point, black had about 7 minutes and white had 2. So this is where time management comes in. Black played much faster and therefore worse, right? So black, for example, several moves ago, probably played this move in about 2 seconds and lost the game because of it and didn't lose the game because of it. The pace at which black played this game was very fast, which made white play very fast too. And now white is losing. Hangs a rook in one move, total blind spot. Now, great job here by black not getting distracted, moving the rook and solidifying. At this point, really, it's kind of chaos. And again, the whole point is to minimize chaos. When you are down to your last major piece, like a queen versus queen and bishop, don't trade the queen. Just don't trade it. Like, white needs the queen on the board here, folks. White needs to give checks, try to win as many pawns as possible, because the truth is that black only has 1 pawn remaining. But a lot of people, they trade completely unnecessarily. So again, refer to the 5 steps, right? And now, great play by black here to get the king all the way in. Endgames with low time are sort of chaotic. The easiest way to win this position is to understand which pawn you have to push here by black. So you have to understand, like, both these pawns are trying to come down, right? So if you take one of them, which of black's pawns should go? Tough question. The one that will deliver a check. The one that will deliver a check. So a5, h5, a4, h6, a3, h7, a2, h8, a1, and it's a check, and even worse, it's an x-ray. That didn't happen in the game, and instead they both got queens, but white traded the queens by mistake. They gave a check, which was cross-checked, and now the black pawn, the final black pawn promoted. So this was an insane game. I mean, completely insane game, and obviously we're following major elements here of the checklist. The last game that I was going to show you was a battle between 900s. And this game is really hopefully going to convince you that you can get to this level. So this game was just a clean pawn blunder on move 2, which white defended. White didn't even... But you know why? I think white wanted to play the London. And in trying to play the London, they... What? So now this happens. Now the knight's on e5, okay? Black plays bishop d6. I like this by white. Look at this. I told you, d and c pawns are best friends. So the pawns go together here. We have takes, takes. Black here plays a horrible trade. This trade is good. Why? Because number 1, white can no longer castle. Number 2, this is a weakness, and you can immediately go after it. The trade that black plays in this game is terrible. This is a terrible trade. Why? Oops, I apologize. Why is this such a bad trade? Look at your pawns. Look for checks. Queen h5 wins on the spot. You not only gave yourself doubled isolated e-pawns, you gave yourself 3 massive pawn weaknesses, and this. All elements of the checklist have been violated. Terrible trade, bad board vision, and not looking at the checklist. And the opening is bad. But okay, that aside, you know. So, right, this is just not good at all. But both players here end up, okay, we finally chill out for a second and we get to a position that's more or less equal. Knight c4, queen e7. Good trade here by white incoming. This is a great trade. Why? Horrible pawns for black now. So black now has doubled c-pawns and an isolated a-pawn. So knight e5, queen c2, right? Great trades. Rook a4 is a whatever move. I don't dislike the move bishop d2. Why don't I dislike it? Because this bishop is terrible. Because a long time ago when you played e3, you blocked in this bishop. So this bishop is worse than the other one, so trade it. I don't like knight d2. I would have played queen d2, but all right, c5. You know, normal stuff. No, free pawn. I mean, it's free, right? Rook e8. Now knight e5. And now just another free pawn. I mean, I don't know what black is doing here, right? No, free pawn. Okay, but now we have something. Right? There's a threat here. The threat is to take the knight. The fact that the knight is protected is a complete illusion. So what does white play? Hangs the knight in one move. What does black play? Attacks the rook, which just got there, and gives it up in one move. White doesn't take it. The knight is now hanging once again in the middle. Queen d5 attacks the rook instead of taking the knight. Rook h4 hangs the knight in the middle of the board again. Finally. Rook c7. White's like, oh, well, I can't take the rook, so I might as well take the pawn. Rook g5. e4. All right? And now, queen takes e4, hangs the queen in one move. In this position, if you play check, takes, and you look for check, rook c8 is a mate. Oops. Rook c8 is a mate. This is how you avoid these kind of mistakes. You realize your back rank is weak, right? This is how you avoid these kind of mistakes. The checklist always has to be used. In this case, after the move e4, black just completely forgot about the rook, and white, okay, gives away a rook, but queen and rook will beat two rooks most of the time, and okay, yep. Black made another blunder. So just gave away a queen for a pawn and a rook for a pawn. All right, 14-2. Not a very good transaction. So black has bad board vision. I mean, that's really all it is. Black has bad board vision. Doesn't visualize the eyes of the pieces very well at all. I told you that so we looked at the games that could be fixed, right? And all these little elements. Now we are going to look at two basically perfect games. This is a game, my subscribers with the white pieces. Look at what black is doing. Kind of playing in the center, kind of not. Look at what white is doing. I mean, two pawns, knight, knight, bishop. Great stuff. Once you're castled, it's go time. All right, once you're castled, your king is out of the middle. You go to the middle of the board. This trade I don't dislike. I don't dislike it at all, especially because this kicks the bishop out. This is just a solid move. What is a5? You see, black is just not playing in the middle, not developing, not castling, not playing in the middle. So white attacks the bishop and secures a nice trade. Why is this a good trade? Because after bishop takes, the queen is better. You've removed black's only active piece. The rook is hanging, and the queen can go this way. That trade only helped one person. Black plays this. So white could take the bishop, but chooses just to develop. Now here, white maybe plays the only bad move of the game. It's not even a blunder, it's a3. White basically just didn't want anything to go to b4, and wants to play b4, and black just, what is black doing? You know why black is doing this? Because black played too passively in the opening. That's really all that happened. Maybe black was studying my e6 b6 course, right? Sometimes you study my courses, but it doesn't work out because you're not playing it right. There's a way that they get played. The pieces have to go to certain squares. I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, right? I have no clue who the player playing with black is. But white just very methodically takes as much. Look at this. Look at this. Amazing play here. c5, d5, d6, and now black, with the king in the middle of the board, opens the board, and white absolutely smashes the board open. Pawn takes d6. Pawn takes e6. Look at this move. Bishop f5. Hitting this weak pawn. Hitting this bishop. By the way, checklist, 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 checklist. Use the checklist. That's just a free bishop, right? Checklist first. Also, bishop g6 is check. Checklist first. But I'm not even concerned because queen e6 and black resigns. I mean, this is how you're going to get to 1,000. White made a couple inaccuracies, no blunders, methodical game of chess to completely break apart black's position, and got a win. And the last game that I would like to show you of this entire video is this one. Here my subscriber has the black pieces. This is a game between high 900 rated players. This one has probably the most proper opening that we've seen. This is the Scotch, okay? Takes, knight f6. White takes and plays knight c3, okay? So black here develops a bishop, fantastic stuff. White plays bishop c4, And here I would just castle with black, but okay, I don't dislike this. Castles, and white here begins attacking without castling, right? So we've seen this before. The idea is to take the knight and ruin the structure, so black defends. Look at this, understanding how the pieces operate. Look at that great defense here by black. Great move here by white, actually. Castling long and attacking the bishop. Here, what you got to do is chill out for a second and play the move bishop e5. Instead of that, black plays this, which looks really good. It looks really fantastic because you're pinning this, but there's a sequence. This is a high-level trade sequence, right? We talked about trades. Let's do some counting. Queen takes bishop, knight takes queen, bishop takes queen, and then this. Okay? So white got a bishop and a queen, black got a bishop and a queen. But at the end, it's white's move. So real quick, takes, 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 takes. It's white's move. You have to think it's white's move. What is white gonna move? Don't just end your calculation. White is gonna take the bishop. You lose this trade. Oh, no. White didn't take the bishop. White didn't follow the checklist, right? So white in this position was afraid of this, I guess, but rook takes bishop is just a free bishop. So white plays f3. Now, if black follows the checklist here, okay, black will give a check, move the bishop out of danger, and then fork. This is the way black is going to win material. By checking first, then winning the material. Black does this instead, and now if you do the math, rook takes bishop, knight takes rook, and you just go attack it using the checklist. Again, checks, captures, attacks. 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 The knight is trapped. So you actually get two pieces for a rook, which is better. But neither player here uses the checklist. Instead, moves the rook, gives up this, and now the bishop survives. So now black is winning, and the speed at which black converted this game, look at this. Bishop, bishop, equal danger, all right? And then the position becomes two rooks versus knight and rook. What you do here is you need to connect your rooks, avoid back rank problems, and if you get rook versus knight, you win immediately. Rook is so much faster than the knight. So good job. Look at this, activating some pawns. A little bit defensive. I don't hate it, but, you know, not always necessary. Threatening mate, great threat. Knight goes back to, and beautiful. This is the most active positioning of a rook in an endgame, and now you just gobble, and terrible, right? I mean, you wanted the rook off the board, so now black just removes the pawns and is going to make a queen. That's a little bit even unnecessary to sacrifice the rook for the knight, but you just have the pawns. You just have the pawns. And the pawns there hold together, and the second that the white king gobbles one, you promote, and white resigned. So black played one inaccurate little sequence, but otherwise played a fantastic game. Like, if you play like this, you will get to 1,000, absolutely no problems. So this is kind of the last two games I wanted to end on. Good control in the center, good openings, evaluating and understanding how your pieces interact with one another, sometimes with mistakes. You're not going to be perfect, okay? Understanding time management, which is obviously, like, depending on what you play, that's for you to decide. If you play 3-minute, 5-minute, 10-minute, 15, 30, you don't want to be down more than a certain percent, okay, on time. The checklist. You have to apply the checklist throughout the game. At some point, it will become passive nature. Like, it will just be constantly there. But every time you're moving or wanting to make a move and thinking for your opponent, you have to think for their checklist as well. I hope this was helpful. I wanted to keep this about a 30-minute video to be compelling and interesting. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your feedback in the comments below, and if you want another one like this for a higher rating, yeah, thanks for your support. I'll see you in the next video. Get out of here.